Gojo Past Arc takes place between chapters 65 and 79, so it's a relatively short arc. But don't get it twisted. Just because it's a short arc doesn't mean not much happens in this arc. A lot of shocking moments occur in this arc that will shape the future of the Jujutsu Kaisen story going forward, and is also a key component for the big events that will happen in the very next arc, the Shibuya Incident arc. It's very similar to One Piece, where you had the short Water 7 arc, which then led to the massive climax in the NES Lobby arc. It's similar to that in a sense, so here in this video, I'm going to be talking about the top 5 moments from the Gojo Past arc that shocked the world and the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbase. And just in case if you're not aware, there will be major spoilers in this video. Your tribal chief has warned you. Let's start off with number 5, Gojo's views on the week in chapter 65. Here in this chapter, we have both Ghetto and Gojo debating about the role of Jujutsu sorcerers. On the one hand, we had Ghetto explaining to Gojo that society should protect the weak and keep the strong and powerful in check, with further adding that Jujutsu exists to protect non-Jujutsu users. Gojo replies by saying it's a pain looking out for the weak, and he in fact hates that type of stuff. This is such a surreal moment because you would never ever assume that Gojo of all people would have views like this. Throughout the story, before we even got to this arc, we see Gojo constantly saving people. The Kyoto Goodwill event arc, we see him break the barrier and save everyone at the last minute, and not only his students, but even the Kyoto students as well. He did the typical Goku or Luffy entrance at the last minute to beat the bad guys and be the hero. He's also a teacher looking out for his students, and when he found out that the higher-ups were sending Yuji into these impossible missions in order for him to die, that enraged Gojo even more. He was willing to kill the higher-ups there and then. He was looking out for the weak and powerless even before we got to the Gojo Past arc. So for him stating in that arc that he doesn't care about the weak is such a contrast to how his character is now currently in the story, which just shows that the events of this arc shaped Gojo as a person for the better. However, I can't say the same for the next character on my list. Number 4, the rise and fall of Ghetto. It's so sad seeing such an optimistic and positive character just fall so hard. Unlike Gojo at the beginning of this arc, Ghetto is actually a good guy. He's the one saying that Jujutsu sorcerers are obliged to save non-Jujutsu users. Basically, all the everyday normal people. Ghetto is the one telling Gojo to let Riko spend her last days with her friends and family instead of rushing to Jujutsu High waiting for the merger in a couple days' time. Ghetto had compassion for people and believed it was his duty to save people because he was strong and had the ability to do it. Those were his views at the beginning of the chapter. But then when he loses the fight against Toji and sees the reaction of the Star Religious group towards Ricos Death, that crushed his whole belief system and his way of living. You can see in chapter 76, after a whole year has passed, something is bothering him. He beats the curses and consumes them. And again, rinse and repeat. In the very next chapter, he suggests to Yuki that killing all the non-sorcerers will fix the problem of cursed spirits, and you can tell this had been bothering him for the whole year. But because there's still a spark of goodness within him, he hasn't taken any drastic actions yet. But as we see by the end of chapter 77, he ends up killing the entire village that kept the 2 girls who were Jujutsu sorcerers imprisoned and badly beaten up. This was the trigger that Ghetto needed to fully let him unleash his deep hatred for the non-sorcerers, and by the time we see him in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, he refers to the non-sorcerers as monkeys. The contrast between him and Gojo is ridiculous. Gojo went from not caring about the weak into progressing his power and actually protecting them by the end of the arc, whereas Ghetto went from being the optimistic hero at the beginning of the arc into a full-fledged villain with a pessimistic view on the world and on non-sorcerers. Seeing Ghetto being good was shocking enough, but seeing how good he actually was, and then seeing the dark nature of humanity fully destroy his optimism and the light in his soul, it really is a tragedy. And speaking of tragedy, number 3, we have the death of Riko in chapter 72. This was a shock because it goes against all the shonen tropes we have seen before. I love One Piece. And that's why I love comparing both One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen, because I believe Akutami and Oda are generational authors that we are blessed to have as manga writers. But in One Piece, in a lot of the arcs, we see Luffy meeting a princess or a very important female figure in an arc, who he has to keep safe throughout the arc because the main villain would want this female character to be dead. We have seen this in the Alabasta arc with Princess Vivi, Shirahoshi in Fishman Island arc, Rebecca to an extent in the Dressrosa arc, and finally, the most famous and iconic plot point, Nico Robin in the Water 7 Enies Lobby arc. But Luffy does end up saving Nico Robin and even made her say the famous "I want to live" quote. But here in the Gojo Past Arc, we did get that moment where Rico wanted to live. She says the exact same thing that Robin said, and she wants to see everyone again, and she wants to see the world in chapter 72. But unlike One Piece and Nico Robin, Rico did end up dying. She got shot through the head thanks to the main antagonist Toji Fushiguro. Because I'm so used to seeing a character like Rico being rescued like from the other shonen series like One Piece and Dragon Ball, and because Rico finally admitted that she doesn't want to merge with Master Tengen, it's a stark contrast to chapter 67 where she says she is Master Tengen and Master Tengen is her. I automatically assume that she will survive and that Gojo and Ghetto have completed their mission. That wasn't the case, and in this death, we had Gojo learn what true compassion is and Ghetto fully realizing the dark nature of humanity. So as shocking as the death is, it was definitely needed for the progression of these characters no matter what path they took. Number 2, Gojo using Holo Purple for the first time. When Gojo used Holo Purple back in episode 20 for the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen, it was an internet-breaking moment. He used Beerus' Hakai attack to destroy half the forest and had all the special grade curses running. But finally, we have seen the origin of this attack, and it was against Megumi's dad, Toji Fushiguro. Gojo says that the Gojo clan's family curse techniques are well known and that there even is a quote-unquote manual passed down on how to use these techniques in the family. However, very few in the Gojo clan actually know about the Holotechnic Purple. It is born by colliding both infinities with an imaginary mass rushing forth to create this technique. Gojo more or less came back from the dead, and the fact that he managed to do this technique is a testament to how much of a badass fighter Gojo is. Ever since we saw this attack for the first time, I always wanted to know, how did he come up with this? And does he even use this attack often? It appears that he only uses it when the situation is absolutely dire, and Toji was absolute chaos. The guy is like the John Wick of the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, a physical specimen that cannot be matched. Which I will segue into my number 1 shocking moment from this arc, is when Toji defeated both Gojo and Ghetto between chapters 71 and 73. He defeated them in 3 chapters. The 2 strongest sorcerers were defeated, and it was easy. Because Toji was a non-sorcerer, both Ghetto and Gojo couldn't sense him. He literally was the boogeyman for them. Toji also had the curse tool, the inverted spear of heaven, which forcefully stops the use of curse techniques, which is like the perfect weapon against Jujutsu sorcerers, which he used to stab Gojo to death, as well as slicing all of Ghetto's cursed spirits, including the Rainbow Dragon and Ghetto himself. Toji is a monster of a fighter, but we never expected him to do this much damage. The fact that Gojo had to die and come back and use a technique that was long forgotten by the Gojo clan against Toji just shows how much of a beast Toji was as a villain. And again, we have never seen Gojo struggle in a fight before. Every fight he is involved in, he wins. And not only does he win, he takes the piss out of his opponents, laughing at how weak they are. An example being episode 7 of season 1. This guy got killed by a non-sorcerer. Toji defeated both the Star Plasma Vessel and the Six Eyes in the same day, as well as being one of the key components into sending Ghetto into a path of darkness. Toji is too awesome, man. He will be the most popular character for season 2 by far. Anyway guys, thank you for watching this video. Let me know if you agree with my list, and if there's any Jujutsu Kaisen video you want me to make, please let me know in the comments down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.